office will have a $2.8 million budget and will employ 14 positions.
And it's important that this is part of our overall budget. This is a permanent expenditure. So there are some cities that have done foundation-supported investments. Those can come and go. And once you really set up a permanent office at the city, that gives momentum. This is not a temporary commitment.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the policy session of the Phoenix City Council for December 7th. I will call the meeting to order and ask the clerk to call the roll.
Councilwoman Ansari.
Here.
Councilman DeCiccio. Councilwoman Guardado.
Here.
Councilwoman O'Brien. Here. Councilwoman Pastor. Councilwoman Stark.
Here.
Councilman Waring.
Here.
Vice Mayor Garcia. I apologize. Vice Mayor Garcia. Mayor Gallego.
Thank you and welcome. Carmen Cota is here to provide interpretation. Carmen, would you introduce yourself?
Good afternoon, Mayor. This is Carmen Cota, and I'll be serving as an interpreter. Would you like me to introduce myself in Spanish, Your Honor?
Please do.
Buenas tardes, yo soy Carmen Cota. Yo les voy a servir de intérprete hoy día.
Wonderful. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. We'll begin today's council meeting with council information and follow-up requests. Councilwoman Guardado.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I just had one report, and I just wanted to say that I know that there has been a lot of discussion about the rights of workers over the last few weeks. So on that same message of supporting workers in our city, I would like to thank the brave men and women who work for HMS hosts at our airport who participated in a 10-day strike over the Thanksgiving holiday. Their brave example of standing up for better pay, a decent retirement, quality and affordable health care, and respect on the job is something we can all learn from. Thanks to these workers, Phoenix Sky Harbor will continue to be the world's friendliest airport. And I also want to thank my colleagues, Councilwoman Laura Pastor, Councilwoman Yasmin Ansari, and Vice Mayor Carlos Garcia for their support for these workers during these tough times. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilwoman Ansari.
Thank you, Mayor. It's been an exciting month since our last policy meeting, so just have a couple of updates and announcements for upcoming events. So with the exciting news of the passage of the infrastructure bill, we held an event with the Phoenix Union at Cesar Chavez High School in District 7 with the superintendent, Chad Geston, as well as Councilwoman Laura Pastor, who serves on the governing board. the purpose. It's really cool. Phoenix Union has 4 electric school buses, so we were showcasing their electric buses at the event, as well as Phoenix Union's plan and intention to replace all of their remaining 80 buses with fully electric school buses using funds from the infrastructure bill. We also got to use that same bus at the APS Light Parade with District 5 and District 8. We had an electric bus, electric golf carts, and electric scooters, as well as many different representatives from unions who walked with us. So that was a fun time on Saturday. I also want to congratulate the Levine Community Council on the Levine Turkey Trot that I got to attend, along with Vice Mayor Garcia. I didn't get to run it this year, unfortunately, but we had a really fun time tabling and celebrating Thanksgiving. Also, a couple of updates. I've been working closely with service providers in and around the Human Services campus, as well as some of the surrounding neighborhoods, especially around the holidays, to support our unsheltered neighbors and bring additional support. I'm excited to announce that as of yesterday, we now have 24/7 bathroom access at the Human Services campus, the Brian Garcia Welcome Center. So that's really, really great, as it's been really needed and asked for by the community for quite some time now. We're also working closely with Gina as well as the Andre House to hopefully, it's still in the works, but hopefully identify ways to expand bathroom access outside of the campus. And I just look forward to our conversations around ARPA this year, where I hope we'll make much more significant investments around smaller, more specialized facilities, but also to support the surrounding neighborhoods with more outreach and more services. We also had a great meeting with some of the community leaders along Grand Avenue, Bob Graham, Beatrice Moore, Jim McPherson, as well as city staff, to talk about the future and preserving historic Grand Avenue. So we'll be doing a walk with some of the businesses to see what is possible to pitch to affordable housing projects, to more local small businesses as well. Also, now that we're getting so close to Christmas, I wanted to highlight some of the upcoming events happening in downtown Phoenix. There is so much cool stuff happening, especially for families. So this weekend, there's the Phoenix Art Festival at Hans Park, both days 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. There's also a holiday market on Grand Avenue, December 11th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. This is the first time downtown Phoenix is hosting a Winter Wonderland event. It'll be 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. throughout the entirety of downtown. Festivus is taking place again December 15th and 16th. My team and I will be there December 15th at the downtown Phoenix Farmers Lot with Hipster Santa, if you want to come join. And City Skate is open as well, and the mayor and I got to go kick off the opening last week. Really awesome. It's right in the middle there. You can go ice skating 5 p.m. to 11 p.m. until December 16th, and then 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. until January 5th. So really glad that we are bringing so much fun activities to downtown Phoenix. And then this is a ways out, but since the holidays are coming up, I just wanted to let folks know that on January 29th, we'll be teaming up with Councilwoman Guardado and Councilwoman Pastor, who also represent the Maryville area, on a collaborative Maryville resource fair at Cartwright Elementary School. So we'll have more information to share on that when we return from the holidays. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilwoman Ansari. Councilwoman Pastor.
I'm going to wait for my PowerPoint. Thank you. We had a great meeting with our 51st Avenue Business Coalition. I look forward to revitalizing this area in 2022. There's a picture of us, of our McDonald's business, small business. And then traffic lights. Thank you. Next slide. Traffic lights, thanks to Vince Gigalotti, I don't know if I said it right, for a great tour of our City of Phoenix traffic signal shop. They get a lot done in a small space to keep the city moving. It takes a village to build a float. Next slide. It takes a village to build a float. Many thanks to the super designer Kelly Hale, Maritza Lopez, Jesse Santiana, Tanya Dosi, Ruben Martinez, Susan Edwards, Crystal Mendoza, Karina Hidalgo, Eddie Cotto, Sofia Cotto, Rosa Pastrana, Irma Gonzalez, Teresa Gonzalez, Marcos Lopez, Bard Landowski, Tim Solnot, and Vince, and the amazing crew at the Indian Steel Park. And I know we're missing some. We're missing Kara Martinez. And just want to say thank you. It took a great vision to build that float. Many people who volunteered were from District 4, so it was nice hanging out with my constituents. December 18th, next slide. December 18th, we will be hitting the streets with Poverty Pets for a free spay and neuter clinic. We are also working with Poverty Pets and the Humane Society for a summer safety program. We have partnered with U-Haul to create these great temporary dog houses that we can give out for free all summer to any dogs who need a little shade. Next slide. Holiday cheer coming back to Casa Primavera. December 22nd, we are bringing back our Casa Primavera senior holiday party. Hot chocolate, pan dulce, and lots of dancing. Next slide, please. Our 3rd Avenue Central mural wall is complete and it is amazing. Congratulations to artists Esteban Cural and Jesus Gallo. Many thanks to Katrina at ArtLink, Sharon Harper from Park Central, and Mitch Menchaca for making this happen. December 14th, next slide. December 14th, we will be hosting an evening holiday hot chocolate event with special guest Chris Mackey so we can help all our small businesses learn about business grants. Then, my office has partnered with UFCW Local 99 to do a refugee back to school drive so all kids can hit the 2022 semester loaded with tools they need to be successful. To donate, just go to Amazon.com and search Refugees Back to School Drive. And finally, I know we all want to start 2022 healthy, so start training for our first 5K run on March 19th. We are partnering with a group of students of African American Reconstruction, and we will be raising money for tutoring, economic education, and mentoring of the community by the community. That's all, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to take a moment to commemorate the passing of Dr. Bernard Black. He was a pillar of the South Side and African American Church, and he will be missed by many. His services will be happening this week on Thursday and Friday. Also wanted to take some time to invite constituents to our resource event. We are hosting alongside with the Human Services Campus, or with the Human Services Department, sorry. If anyone is in need of rent or utility assistance, they can join us this Saturday from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. at the Pat Tillman School at 4309 East Bellevue Street, Phoenix, Arizona. Also want to echo Councilwoman Guardado in congratulating and supporting the workers that stood up and had the strike. So that's all I had, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I join you in celebrating the life of Pastor Black. Councilwoman O'Brien.
Thank you so much, Mayor. Just like to say a few words about today. The attack on Pearl Harbor 80 years ago remains a poignant symbol of freedom and sacrifice. It was on that day that our country became the world's foremost defender of liberty. May this day forever remind us that we must always be willing to fight for our freedom and what we believe in. More importantly, Pearl Harbor Day should always remind us what Americans are capable of when we come together as a united front defending a just cause. Thank you to all those who served and are serving our country. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, and thank you to the committee who has been recognizing Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day for so many years in our community. Would also like to congratulate the informant on 50th anniversary, a major milestone. I do not see any further council comments, so we will go to agenda item number 1, and I will turn it over to our city manager, Jeff Barton.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, members of council, as you know, Earlier today, a United States district judge in court in Georgia halted implementation of the vaccine mandate for federal contractors that was included in Executive Order 14042. The January 18th vaccine mandate was not a City of Phoenix mandate. It was a federal mandate passed on to the city via executive order, and with today's ruling, the city is halting implementation. Before we begin today's presentation, I think it's important that I emphasize that for the better part of the last 2 years, our priority has been to protect our community and our employees from COVID-19 while ensuring, to the best of our ability, seamless continuity of operations. Our fight against COVID-19 has forced us to be creative and innovative with our service delivery, and at times has forced us to make extremely difficult decisions as public servants for the greater good. Implementation of the vaccine mandate contained in the President's executive order is one example of those difficult decisions. Throughout this pandemic, as an employer, we have been extremely flexible and supportive of our employees by offering a host of safety measures and flexible telework options where available. Let me be clear. I value our employees, each and every one of them. I value their right to personal choice, religious freedom, and other convictions. But I also have an obligation to ensure that the city operates within state and federal laws. In today's presentation, you will hear about the things we've done to support staff. You will hear of the city's unfortunate experiences and tragic losses from COVID-19, and you will hear specific details about the chain of events that brought us here today. Joining me at the table today are Assistant City Manager Lori Bays, Acting Human Resources Director David Matthews, and outside counsel Eric Frazier of Osborne and Maladon, who we consulted for a second opinion on the executive order and its impact on the city. With that, I'll turn the presentation over to Lori Bays.
Thank you, City Manager Barton. Good afternoon, Mayor, members of the council. Today, we will discuss the things that the city has implemented since the beginning of the pandemic to promote employee health and safety. We will also talk about our experience at the city related to COVID-19. Additionally, we will discuss the vaccine requirement timeline, how we learned about the requirement, and the implementation approach that we took. And finally, we will discuss the federal contractor requirements under the executive order, as well as recent legal developments. Throughout the pandemic, employee and community health and safety have been our highest priorities. For our 14,000 city employees, that means that we have been working from day one to do everything that we can to keep employees as safe and healthy as possible. This has included providing personal protective equipment. We have provided masks, gloves, plexiglass barriers, and other equipment to keep employees safe. We have increased routine and deep cleaning of our facilities and vehicles, and also provide deep cleaning if an employee tests positive and has been in a city facility or vehicle. Additionally, we provide contact tracing and notification for all employee cases. We provide on-site testing and COVID-19 vaccinations, and we did that as soon as they were available to both employees and their household members. We made changes to our workplaces, including reconfiguring cubicles, raising the height of cubicle walls, installing plexiglass barriers, providing social distancing markers in elevators and where lines form. We also installed air filtration systems and increased ventilation wherever possible. We limited the size of gatherings, implemented virtual meetings, and allowed employees to access vehicles and other work equipment differently to avoid in-person contact. We started a citywide telework program that at one point had approximately 3,400 city employees teleworking to keep both those employees safe as well as to limit the number of people in the workplace to decrease the amount of potential exposure for those who cannot telework. Throughout the pandemic, we have made as much information as possible available to employees from public health experts. We have taken our guidance from the CDC as well as the county and state health departments. We hired public health consultants and made public health experts available to employees through webinars and other means to answer their questions about the virus, how it transmits, how testing works, as well as how safe and effective the vaccines are. We have offered additional paid leave time beyond what was required by the Families First Coronavirus Response Act to employees impacted by COVID, either by experiencing symptoms and seeking a diagnosis themselves, by testing positive, or by having a family member that tested positive or was quarantined. We also offered leave to employees impacted by school and childcare closures, and we provided free day camps to dependents of city employees whose jobs required them to work on site. We have provided regular email communication, flyers for our field employees, podcasts, texts, blasts, and daily and sometimes weekly meetings with our labor partners throughout the pandemic. We also developed an employee health updates website, which has been our one-stop shop of information regarding everything I just discussed, so that it's compiled there for employees to easily access if they have a question or they need additional information. In spite of all of those efforts, we have been impacted by COVID, similar to our community, and even at higher levels at some points. You can see on this chart that we've had 2 significant spikes during the pandemic, and a more recent, less severe but rolling spike, I call it, that's happened over the last several months. And we've maintained a daily case average between 6 and 9 cases per day, and recently that's ticked up to the teens and 20s. Since March of 2020, we've had 3,940 employees, which is 29% of our employee population, test positive for COVID-19. Sadly, we've had 24 employee deaths related to COVID-19. These figures have led to 747 workers' compensation claims filed and $5.8 million in total incurred costs related to COVID-19. We've also had $14.2 million in medical plan costs related to the pandemic. As it relates to what we know about the experience of vaccinated versus unvaccinated employees, we have to be very careful about protecting the personal health information of our employees. However, what I can say is that the most serious COVID-19 cases resulting in very serious illness and death have occurred in unvaccinated employees. We have had a split response as it relates to vaccines. 51% of our employees have submitted a completed vaccine card, and 49% have not. That is the best information that we have related to what percentage of our population is vaccinated. We are not aware of any employees having significant side effects related to a COVID-19, and we continue to encourage vaccination for employees. As the pandemic has progressed, we have seen a variety of operational impacts related to the pandemic. In our fire department, we have had ambulances out of service. In our police department, our staffing issues have been exacerbated by the pandemic. And in the public works department, we've had drivers having to double up routes because the work still needs to get done. In the water department, we have also had some challenges staffing our treatment plants and in other areas across the city. It's a summary of our COVID-19 experience, and it doesn't cover all of our impacts, but we have prioritized health and safety throughout the last 21 months. Now I'd like to turn it over to Acting Human Resources Director David Matthews to discuss how we've responded to the COVID-19 vaccine requirement for federal contractors.
Good afternoon, Mayor, members of Council. We wanted to recap the timeline that got us to where we are today. Executive Order 14042 that included the federal contractor vaccine requirements was issued on September 9th. Additional guidance clarifying the federal contractor criteria was issued on November 10th. We discussed this information in executive session on November 17th and sent employee communication out on November 18th. There was an injunction issued in Kentucky on November 30th, and as of today, a nationwide injunction was issued regarding the federal contractor vaccine requirement. I also did want to mention that in addition to the federal contractor vaccine mandate, there are other requirements in place that may require certain positions to be vaccinated. Our main focus when implementing the federal contractor vaccine requirement was to balance the operational needs and compliance with the executive order. We sent detailed information to employees that included links to the executive order and information on how to request an accommodation. This message was sent on November 18th to give employees as much time as possible to get vaccinated or submit an accommodation request. We also continue to communicate with employees and our labor partners as much as possible, as we have done throughout the pandemic, and we will continue to respond to changes as appropriate, like today's injunction. I will now turn it over to Eric Frazier with Osborne and Maladon to go over the federal contractor requirements.
Good afternoon, Mayor and members of the Council. Thank you for having me. We were retained to analyze whether the federal government's vaccine requirements for federal contractors apply to the city. We conducted an independent legal analysis and concluded that the vaccine requirements do apply to the city. Our analysis confirms staff's prior conclusion and also confirms the interpretation the federal government itself has taken as to the contracts with the city. These requirements stem from Executive Order 14042, which the President issued in September. The federal government issued guidance in September and then issued major updates to the guidance on November 10th. The executive order and the guidance require that federal contracts be updated to include vaccine requirements for federal contract employees, which I'll discuss in a bit. The federal government has issued several notification letters to the city informing the city that the vaccination requirement must be added to the city's contracts. Here's how it works. Federal contracts up for renewal, extension, or modification must include a vaccine provision. The vaccine provision will require all covered employees to be vaccinated by January. The federal requirements do not provide for a testing option in lieu of vaccinations. The federal program does allow for required medical and religious accommodations. The central question we were asked to analyze is whether the executive order applies to the city. That question turns on the definition of federal contractor. The executive order and related guidance define federal contractors as a party to a covered contract with a federal agency. The definition is extremely broad. The city has multiple contracts that fit this definition, so we concluded that the city is a federal contractor. The next question is, who is a covered federal contractor employee? Here, too, the federal program has expansive definitions. It includes any full-time or part-time employee of a covered contractor who satisfies one of two conditions. The first way to be covered is by working on or in connection with a covered contract. So this would include roles like HR and other support roles. The second way to be covered is to work at a covered contractor workplace, even if the employee is not working on or in connection with a covered contract. That phrase, covered contractor workplace, means a location controlled by a covered contractor where an employee who works on or in connection with a covered contract is likely to be present. It also includes any location where a covered employee has interactions with other employees, such as lobbies, elevators, and parking garages. So here's what that means. For a contract at the airport, for example, there are employees at City Hall who may not work on the contract directly, but who work in connection with the contract by performing HR functions for employees who do work on the contract. Those HR employees use the parking garage and central elevators. That means that the elevators, lobby, and parking garage have become a covered contractor workplace. This has a broad reach. Our analysis is that the city has multiple contracts with federal agencies that meet the definitions in the executive order and the related guidance, so the federal contractor vaccine program applies to the city. The federal government has reached the same conclusion and has already sent the city multiple requests to amend contracts to conform to the executive order. Now, there have been legal challenges to the federal contractor requirements in Arizona and in multiple other states. As you heard earlier, a nationwide preliminary injunction was issued today by a federal court in Georgia, but it applies nationwide. Last week, a preliminary injunction was issued by a different court, a different federal court, as to Kentucky, Ohio, and Tennessee. The Arizona Attorney General has a lawsuit now pending in federal court in Arizona. The city was added by the Attorney General as a defendant. These legal rulings have already affected the city's compliance with the federal contractor requirements, and the future developments may affect the city's responsibilities as well. I will turn things back over to the city manager. There we go.
Thank you, Eric. Mayor, members of the council, as you've witnessed for the last 2 years and if you've heard throughout this presentation, employee safety has been a priority throughout this pandemic. We will continue to focus on keeping our employees as safe and healthy as possible, And as a federal contractor, as you've heard from Mr. Frazier, the city employees are required to be vaccinated. However, given today's injunction by the district court in Georgia, legal challenges are in effect, and the injunction will halt and pause our implementation. So in conclusion, the debate and discussion around COVID-19 and the vaccines are two of the most polarizing and hotly contested topics of debate in the country. Throughout the last 3 weeks, I've heard from both sides of this conversation. And let me be clear that both sides are steadfast in their beliefs. We've now can conclude that the city, as it's written, is a federal contractor under the executive order. However, given the injunction, again, it is my intent that we pause implementation of the federal vaccine requirement for city employees that was contained in the federal contractor provision of Executive Order 14042 until there is a final court ruling on this issue. Should the executive order and the mandate survive the legal process, we will attempt to coordinate implementation terms with the federal government and work with our employees. In the meantime, we will continue to encourage our employees to get vaccinated to protect themselves, their families, and the public that we serve. We will also encourage our employees to continue submitting their requests for accommodation. And with that, we'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you. We have a large number of members of our community to provide public comment, so we'll turn to public comment beginning with Marjorie Bessel, and staff will call the members of the community.
Our first speaker is Marjorie Bessel. Are you on the line?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. You may proceed.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Dr. Marjorie Bessel, Chief Clinical Officer for Banner Health, and I would like to just provide some comments on Banner Health's experience with our mandatory COVID vaccine requirement. As I believe everybody knows, Banner Health is a market leader here in the state of Arizona and has responded with heroic efforts throughout the pandemic. At this time, we remain very busy, and as you've already started to delineate here today, we are starting to see an increased number of cases and expect exponential growth to continue into the early part of January. Banner Health announced an employee COVID vaccine requirement in July of this year, and our deadline for implementation occurred on November 1st. As a healthcare delivery system, we felt it incumbent upon ourselves to make sure that we protected our patients, and we look to all of those that are interfacing with the public in such a fashion to make sure that they are protected, not only to carry out their duties, but to protect those out in the community, many of whom may be very vulnerable to the disease and the after effects of being infected with COVID-19. When we began our journey, we had statistics very similar to what you heard about here today. Our original compliance rate was 49%. After our deadline, our compliance rate went up, and today we are 100% compliant with our own internal policy, and over 90% of our individuals who work for us across our entire organization have been vaccinated. The remaining number of individuals have received either religious or medical exemption through a compliant process that we implemented. I want to thank all of those that are on the front line, and especially those that interface with our vulnerable patients who come to our hospitals. As was already stated, we certainly understand the emotion that surrounds this topic, but I thought that providing our own experience as a healthcare entity might be helpful as you have your continued deliberation. In addition to that, healthcare workers have been required to receive vaccinations previously. There's been longstanding requirements for those to get measles and influenza vaccination, and those have been in place for many years. Thank you for allowing me to provide my comments.
Our next speaker is Dr. Keith Frey. Dr. Frey, are you on the line?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. You may proceed.
Thank you, Mayor. For the record, I am Dr. Keith Frey, the Chief Physician Executive for Dignity Health Southwest Division, and I'm responsible for the leadership of more than 20,000 healthcare professionals in ensuring the safe and effective medical services to our patients. I appreciate the opportunity to share with the Council how COVID-19 is impacting our community and healthcare workforce. As you can see from the Arizona DHS dashboard, community spread and hospitalizations continue to rise, and hospitals across our state are stretched to capacity. This year, we're seeing an increase in the number of patients being hospitalized with other ailments. We believe this is a result of those who have had delayed care and the increase in winter visitors. Of those who have been hospitalized with COVID-19, the vast majority of those are unvaccinated. For the past 18 months, our staff has been truly heroic in taking on extra shifts to meet the growing demand and needs of the community, but they are exhausted. We need the community's help. With COVID-19 positive cases going up and new unknowns with the Omicron variant spreading, we are urging residents to get vaccinated and to do everything they can to stay healthy. We have made significant strides in the past year with the development of vaccines and treatments such as monoclonal antibody therapy to fight COVID-19. But we will not be out of the woods until we have higher vaccination rates and a decrease in community spread of the virus. By working together, being vaccinated, and protecting ourselves and others through mitigation efforts, we can all enjoy a safe and happy holiday season. Thank you, Mayor, and on behalf of Dignity Health, we continue to proudly serve this community.
Our next speaker is Mary Bennick. Mary, are you on the line?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. You may proceed.
Okay, thank you. I'm just a citizen, so I'm not a doctor or anything else, but I do have a science background and I have read quite a bit. My statement is as follows. According to Dr. Malone, inventor of the mRNA vaccine platform, quote, "We don't have a true vaccine for COVID like polio or smallpox. This is something very different. Current COVID vaccines are leaky and non-durable, largely due to the fact that the vaccines are not based on the actual genome of the COVID virus, which has not been mapped, for various reasons. We are better off to treat the disease with multi-platform therapeutics if we want to efficiently eradicate COVID. What we have today is a quasi-vaccine that is in that it is breeding vaccine-resistant mutations, which is what incomplete vaccine mapping produces. Two recent articles in the New England Journal of Medicine indicate there is no difference in the mortality rate for people who take the leaky vaccine and those who do not take the vaccine. Vaccine-resistant mutations are rapidly created as a result. To be clear, the vaccine policy is creating the vaccine-resistant mutations. According to Dr. Malone, in the clinical infectious disease Hong Kong study, incidence of myocarditis in boys with comorbidity is 1 in 2,700. Clinical myocarditis is bringing boys into the hospital. Vaccine resistance is increasing because it is escaping our current spike-based vaccines. However, it is not escaping vaccines that are against the whole virus, which include all the proteins, and this strongly implies that it does not escape natural immunity. Natural immunity is better immunity, more complete and durable than vaccines. Therefore, vaccine hesitancy currently supports better immunity.
Our next speaker is Valerie Grosso-Turley. Valerie, are you on the line? Valerie is not on the line. Our next speaker is Will Humble. Will, are you on the line?
Yes, I'm on the line. Thank you, council, staff. My name is Will Humble, Executive Director for the Arizona Public Health Association. This is a particularly important time to be talking about this. Right now, Arizona's hospitals are working under what are called contingency standards of care. That means we have restricted admissions, early discharge, many canceled procedures, higher staffing ratios, limited transfers, restricted movement to higher levels of care. We are in a crisis that will not be gone soon. The pathway to mitigating what we will see in the next 2 or 3 months is to get more people vaccinated. Yes, universal masking in public places is also an effective intervention, but we really need to get more people vaccinated. And we know now that public service announcements and webinars are not the answer. They're not effective. What is effective, as Dr. Bessel just mentioned, Dr. Gray and others, is policy. So policy decisions can make a huge difference, and that includes both carrots and sticks. Carrots, things like requiring people to show proof of vaccination as they enter a restaurant or other public place, and sticks, like conditions of employment. And you know, the U.S. has a long history of accepted conditions of employment for all sorts of things. Decorum, dress code, language, infection control, discrimination. There's a lot of expectations that employers put on their teams, and I think they should also include basic, reasonable requirements and measures to protect coworkers and the public that they serve. The number one thing that they could, in my opinion, that should include required vaccination with the exemptions as required, as outlined under the federal regulation for medical and religious exemptions. But this is a proven effective intervention that will work. Thank you for your time.
Our next speaker is Darren Bergstad. Darren, are you on the line? Darren is not on the line. Our next speaker is Cody Bidlow. Cody, are you on the line? Cody is not on the line. Our next speaker is Warren Bowden. Warren, are you on the line? Warren is not on the line. Our next speaker is Cassandra Boudreau. Cassandra, are you on the line? Cassandra is not on the line. Our next speaker is Pamela Carlson. Pamela, are you on the line? Pamela is not on the line. Our next speaker is Tom Collinson. Tom, are you on the line? Tom is not on the line. Our next speaker is PJ Dean. PJ, are you on the line? Our next speaker is Michelle Dillard. Michelle, are you on the line?
Here.
We can hear you and you may proceed.
Okay. Well, I appreciate the fact that you recognize and respect the legal process that is taking place across our country and the nationwide injunction against a vaccine mandate for federal contractors, which specifically stated that President Biden has likely exceeded his authority with his attempt to impose the requirement. Yet here we are in the city of Phoenix, as this body is still anxious to lord over its employees, contractors, and residents in true communist form. Not to mention the federal judge in Louisiana, the federal judge in Kentucky, and the United States Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit, all of whom have ruled the same, citing things such as grave statutory and constitutional issues with the mandate. Further, while I am pro-business and understand the rights of employers to place conditions of employment on their employees, those conditions cannot and do not exceed beyond their actual paid employment. So unless and until you can unvaccinate them when they clock out or pay them around the clock for the rest of their lives, you have no business forcing an injection of any foreign substance permanently into anyone's body that carries any risk for side effects of any kind. And if you feel that it is completely safe so that you may require that everyone get it, you should simultaneously assume full financial liability for any and all damages that they may incur as a result. This so-called vaccination does not prevent infection or community spread, no matter how many times you all repeat that. So I strongly oppose any sort of mandate going forward, no matter what happens in the court systems, and I highly recommend that you table this for the foreseeable future. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Susan Claire Mace. Susan, are you on the line?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. You may proceed.
Thank you. I'm Susan Mace, a Phoenix resident, and I prepared a short statement asking that the City Council move ahead with a requirement to vaccinate employees. And since I'm personally most familiar with the police department, I want to discuss that issue in the framework of the department's 5 guiding values found in the department's strategic plan. Our very first value is protection and prevention, which makes it clear that employees are expected to protect each other and reduce the risk of illness, and vaccination is the most effective way to do that. Our second value is responsibility and respect, and that holds us responsible for our choice to be public servants. Employees serve the public and not the other way around. It's unjust for citizens to pay pandemic costs endlessly while employees object to their part. The third value is integrity and ideals. Many employees feel they're fighting for the ideal of freedom from forced vaccination, but what happened to other employees' right to life or the right of citizens and their elected officials to change standards when the world changes? Employees absolutely have freedom to separate from the city if the demand is too much. And as for integrity, I've been told twice by people in policing that my support of vaccination makes me, quote, the kind of person who would round up the unvaccinated and put them in camps, end quote. Where's the integrity in whitewashing Nazism and minimizing real human suffering? The false equivalence shows just how far down the rabbit hole some in policing have gone with this issue. Our fourth value is dedication to duty, but there's a group of protesters today outside City Council threatening to resign over vaccination and instilling fear in the public. It's extortion, and please don't reward that behavior. Our final value is employee excellence, but when it comes to vaccination, we are bombarded with mediocre misinformation, half-truths, and a disregard of science. I recently heard a civilian supervisor state openly, I'm going to let the floor staff be my own personal little lab rats when it came to her vaccination decisions. Where's the excellence in ignoring data and using employees as lab rats? It's simple. Do we want a safer workplace or not? If employees leave en masse, the result will be a change in the face of policing that Phoenix needs and deserves. Please don't cave into the demand to discard mandatory employee vaccination. Our department values make it clear that there's no room for employees to put each other at risk. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Tony Dudzinski. Tony, are you on the line?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. You may proceed.
Hello, Mayor and City Council members. Thank you for letting me speak today. My name is Tony Dudzinski. I'm a captain paramedic with the Phoenix Fire Department. I have been with the fire department for over 25 years. I have 4 brothers and 1 nephew in the fire service. We all serve the cities of Phoenix, Glendale, and Mesa. So serving the community is in our genes. We are first generation, 100% Polish Americans. Both of our parents escaped World War II and came to America for one thing, for freedom. Well, that freedom is under attack right now, our freedom of medical freedom. The City of Phoenix firefighters and police officers are always helping people, whether we are on or off the job. That is what we do. We don't care if someone's vaccinated or not vaccinated or tested positive for COVID, because that is a person in need of help and in need of rescue. The City of Phoenix Fire Department and Police Department is already understaffed, and we are beat up and we are worn out. Things are becoming more and more unsafe out there in the city streets. This vaccine mandate will make all City of Phoenix departments suffer, especially public safety. I am against this vaccine mandate that is being required for all City of Phoenix employees. This upcoming mandate is creating a great deal of anxiety for me and my fellow coworkers, and for all of our families that we provide for and that we care for. We believe in the freedom of choice. Christmas time should be a time to bring family, community, neighbors together to reflect on all the hard work and sacrifice that's been done throughout the past year. All of the city employees should not have to be anxious. Please say no to the vaccine mandate, and please do not trade our medical freedom with the payoff from the federal government. Please don't take.
Our next speaker is Marcus Reed. Marcus, are you on the line? Marcus is not on the line. Our next speaker is Brandon Turley. Brandon, are you on the line? Brandon is not on the line. Our next speaker is Kristen Urquiza. Kristen, are you on the line?
Yep, I'm here. My name's Kristen, and I grew up in the Maryville community of Phoenix. My father, Mark, died from COVID-19 in June of 2020 at the beginning of the summer spread. And my mom, Brenda, she's a COVID survivor who's now plagued with post-acute COVID, also known as long COVID. The family I knew has been destroyed by this virus, and the family of many others that I've met over the course of the last year would also say the same. I know many people who have been impacted by COVID because following the death of my father, I stood in front of the state capitol protesting the terrible state and federal policies that were responsible in our rise of cases and the health disparities that we were seeing, in particular in my neighborhood of Phoenix, as well as in South Phoenix. With this patient-led advocacy group I founded, Marked by COVID, we work with folks who are bereaved by COVID, who have lost a loved one, and folks who are permanently disabled by COVID, advocating for policies that get us out of this pandemic, ensure an equitable recovery, and prevent future pandemics. I shouldn't have to say this, but I'm going to anyhow. This pandemic will be the single largest disabling event of our lifetime. 30% of people who have contracted COVID, upwards of, will potentially have long COVID. We've already experienced 22,589 deaths in this state, 12,920 in Maricopa County alone. The people carrying the burden of this pandemic want this pandemic to end more so than anybody else. And this ongoing squabble over simple public health measures, whether it be masking or vaccines, is tone deaf and insensitive at best. So this is a reasonable ask that I strongly urge the city to support and move ahead with. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Robert Duvall. Robert, are you on the line?
Yes, I am. My name is Rob Duvall, and I've been employed with the City of Phoenix for 15 years. I was born in Maryville and raised in Sunny Slope. It is an honor to serve my community, and I cherish the relationships I've formed throughout my career here. With that said, I'm disheartened by the news that the City of Phoenix was implementing a vaccine mandate for its employees. Right after high school, I graduated from, I joined the Army and volunteered because I love this country. I was willing to fight and die for all of us to have the right to choose. From speech to religion, to guns, to medical freedom and more. I believe that these are the freedoms that make us uniquely American. Medical mandates are not a one-size-fits-all measure. For example, I have had COVID back in September. It was great news because now that I have natural immunity, along with over 3,900 other City of Phoenix employees who have been previously infected. If this measure was truly about getting us out of this pandemic, then natural immunity would be celebrated and not vilified. Because of natural immunity, we are safer to be around than any vaccinated individual. Ask yourself this: why isn't natural immunity an acceptable exemption? How many employees and citizens will suffer because of this mandate? You have the power to take a stand. Stand for freedom of choice. As Joseph Heller so eloquently put it, it is better to live on one's feet than to die on one's knees. I implore each of you to take a stand to do the right thing morally and ethically. Thank you for your time.
Our next speaker is Dora Vasquez. Dora, are you on the line?
I am. Thank you.
You may proceed.
Thank you. Hello, I'm Dora Vasquez, Executive Director of the Arizona Alliance for Retired Americans. We have more than 48,000 members throughout the state and are working here for a secure and healthy retirement for all older Americans. I'm pleased to be here today to strongly endorse President Biden's vaccine mandate for federal contractors, or a large part of the Phoenix and Arizona workforce. This is good for our community, good for seniors, and makes good common sense. President Biden's executive order is clear. Federal contractors must ensure their employees are either vaccinated or produce a negative test on at least a weekly basis. As of December 1st, more than 80% of all the people who have died in the United States were over the age of 65. That's tragic and a huge loss for families and the community. The situation is not much better here in Arizona. According to the Department of Health Services, as of today, residents 55 and older suffered more than 77% of the deaths statewide. As effective as the COVID vaccines are at preventing serious illness and hospitalization, we haven't been able to return to normal because too many Americans of all ages have chosen not to be vaccinated, and people continue to die. As the new cases reported last Friday, 5,236, is just the second time in the state that we have seen more than 5,000 cases on 2 consecutive days since last winter's surge. Older unvaccinated adults are still more likely to be hospitalized or die from the effects of this virus. And in Arizona, just 5% of inpatient beds in the state crowded system were available on Friday. Seniors rely on knowing that those around them are vaccinated so they can live their life in peace and dignity. On behalf of our members, we want to know people are vaccinated, that we're safe, that we can go to the grocery store, doctor's office, or any other place in our community. We thank the City of Phoenix for moving ahead and requiring its employees to be vaccinated for the good of the entire community. We appreciate that the city is putting health and safety first. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Lori Forbes. Lori, are you on the line? Lori, are you on the line? Lori is not on the line. Our next speaker is Trey Fuka. Trey, are you on the line?
Yes, I'm on the line. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, we can. You may proceed.
Good afternoon, Mayor Gallardo, council, staff, and fellow citizens. I'm speaking today with a heavy heart about the direction of our great city. I'm a third-generation native Phoenician and a 20-plus year member of the public safety system. I started my career volunteering for the Phoenix Fire Department, then becoming a Phoenix police officer at the age of 21. I later transferred to the Phoenix Fire Department, where I currently serve as a captain. I'm speaking to you today not as a disgruntled employee or an anti-vaccine individual, but to help remind you of what makes our city so great, what has made our city always stand out amongst the crowd. It's the people that dedicate their lives to make our city function, the people that run into burning buildings and COVID-infected houses, the ones that chase criminals down dark alleys, the ones making sure our streets stay sanitary, and the ones making the decision held before you today. All these acts done to make our city great. Phoenix stood out because the whole country knew that we put our people first. We never let outside influence dictate our decisions or ideas. We didn't care about political parties or special interest groups. We always came together and looked for truth from all angles and opinions from every concerned member. Yes, we will not always agree, but like family, we always find common ground. Sadly, this has been lost. Trust has been lost. We somehow have made this an us versus them over a person's right to choose what they put in their body. I feel confident in saying that our public safety family is still a family, regardless of each other's decision, and we stand together. I'm not here to argue about the effectiveness or ineffectiveness of the vaccines. I am here to plead that we as a city stand up for our Constitution, stand up for our rights, and not let outside influence or government try to erode what so many have built before us. It used to be the strength of
Our next speaker is Vishal Verma. Vishal, are you on the line?
Yes, I'm on the line. Thank you, Mayor Gallego and Council for helping me register my voice. I'm an internal medicine physician and a healthcare executive, and I'm here in my personal capacity as a physician who has seen the havoc this virus has caused in the communities we serve. Your healthcare heroes are tired, we are exhausted, and we need help. Today, Arizona registered 3,000 new cases, 172 deaths, and we have 63% Arizonians who are vaccinated. Only way out is to vaccinate and get to the herd immunity. I have taken the vaccine. My family has taken the vaccine. I endorse my patients, eligible patients, to take vaccine. We need a policy to get to the herd immunity. I completely understand the arguments being made, about the choice, and I am for choice. But you also have to realize that this is almost a second year, and the pandemic has extended itself, and it is now largely the pandemic of unvaccinated people. People are dying. Healthcare heroes are exhausted. Frontline heroes are exhausted. Vaccination is our only hope right now. And please, for God's sake, let's get together and get this thing done and bring our communities out of this pandemic. I completely endorse, in my personal capacity, the mandate, and I want to see a herd immunity being built and our communities safer from this virus. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you reaching me out. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Martin Vogel. Martin, are you on the line? Martin is not on the line. Our next speaker is Ashley G. Ashley, are you on the line? Ashley, are you on the line?
Hello? Yes. Yes, I'm on here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. You may proceed.
Thank you. Council members, thank you for allowing me to speak today. I come to you today to oppose the vaccine requirement. The year 2020 was hard for everyone. It was incredibly difficult for myself. November of last year, I was in a car accident. I moved. My mother died of hypertension and cardiac complications, and I had major surgery on my spine. While in surgery, my heart stopped and I flatlined. Not once, but twice. Doctors diagnosed me with broken heart syndrome. I am 32 years old, and within this year have been through a cardiologist, a neurologist, a neuropsych, and several doctors to restore normality. When I ask medical professionals whether I should take the vaccine, I do not receive a clear answer. I have not been vaccinated in fear of what further health complications may occur. I am a proud employee with the City of Phoenix since May of 2018. I have assisted in many achievements and watched as the city continues to grow. At 32 years old, I have already set up my retirement and my life insurance, and it has been a goal to retire with the City of Phoenix. I never thought the day would come where I would have to choose between my health or my career. No one should have to choose this. Everyone is different and has their reasons for the decisions on this vaccine. My decision of why I have not been vaccinated is because I am scared. I fear of further health complications this vaccine may cause me. So I ask you, members of council, please do not put forth this mandate and let your employees decide what is right for them. Thank you so much for your time. Bye-bye.
Our next speaker is Martin Vogel. Martin, are you on the line? Martin, are you on the line?
I'm on the line. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. You may proceed.
Thank you. I speak in favor of the vaccination policy for two reasons. First, In addition to the vaccine protocol, I'm also in favor of the $1,500 bonus incentive for vaccinations for employees who take advantage of it. Two principal reasons for supporting this. One, my mother is in assisted living and memory care, a senior category that has disproportionate contact with firefighters responding to health emergencies. Secondly, my overall concern about the high costs of COVID healthcare costs and the city's self-insurance program ultimately puts the risk of higher costs of healthcare on the taxpayers. So to elaborate, one, the firefighters have a low rate of vaccination. 90% of firefighting calls are for healthcare emergencies. Disproportionately, these goes to senior citizens, including those in long-term care facilities. By having unvaccinated city employees in contact with that vulnerable population, they are unnecessarily exposed to potential health risks. Secondly, in terms of the overall cost of health care for COVID, costs are extraordinarily high. The previously alluded to references to 747 workman's comp cases and the attendant medical costs may only be the tip of the iceberg. I think there was a reference to 14 million in medical plan costs so far. That figure will only increase as the Delta and Omicron variants attack more of our population. So as medical costs increase, other service areas in the city will have to be reduced, or taxes will have to increase. The council can minimize COVID medical costs by implementing this vaccination policy, preserve other critical city services without increasing taxes. Thank you for
Our next speaker is Jane Hendricks. Jane, are you on the line?
Since March of 2020 very successfully. I have not had one patient go into the hospital. With early treatment, our hospitals do not have to be taxed. We have city and healthcare shortages, not because of the unvaccinated COVID patients. We have it because people are quitting. Healthcare workers are quitting. That's why you are short on staff. They don't want the mRNA therapy. We have shortages in firemen and police. I'm also a resident of Phoenix. I now have a gun and a security system because I realize we are 500 cops short, and that makes me very fearful about my neighborhood. So I'm speaking both as a resident of Phoenix, worried about the shortages in your city because people are quitting. We have offices that are patients. Speaking from a physician standpoint, you are interfering with my relationship with my patient. I will decide what treatment they need. This is an mRNA treatment that I will let them know if it's safe for them or if they need to wait until more studies come out. This is way premature for a government to step in, and you as a local government override the federal government. You know that. The Supreme Court has stated it in today's document that is an overreach. You are to honor that as part of this republic. As a physician, I'm asking you to step aside and allow the doctors to treat COVID early on. The vaccine is not the only way out. Early treatment is the way out, and to honor and respect the robust natural immunity that has taken place for all those patients that have already had COVID-19. It is more robust than the vaccines, and it will certainly be more robust than the boosters. The vaccine is no longer effective after 3 months, and in fact, it is causing transmission of the virus per Fauci, per the CDC, transmission to the unvaccinated people. So it is actually assisting in transmission, and it never did prevent transmission in the first place. So there really is no reason for the government to mandate vaccines. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Michael White. Michael, are you on the line?
Yes, I am.
You may proceed.
Mayor Gallego, members of the City Council, thank you for giving me the opportunity to share my views. I am serving as the Chief Clinical Officer of the Valleywise Health System. As you may know, Valleywise Health is Arizona's public teaching hospital and community healthcare system. We've been serving Phoenix for over 140 years. I'm not here today to discuss politics or argue statistics, but I'm here today to say we need your help. Hospitals across the Phoenix metropolitan area are at breaking point. Speaking specifically for us, we're running at capacity every day, not just for COVID-19 patients, but for anything a patient needs. Our COVID-19 units, which were almost empty a few months ago, today are at capacity. And the numbers over the next few weeks are just going to continue to get worse. We're seeing many younger COVID patients, COVID positive moms, unvaccinated with severe illness. It's heartbreaking to have a mother and her baby separating, knowing the mother may not survive to see her child grow and thrive. Today, nearly 90% of our patients that are hospitalized are unvaccinated. We've been treating COVID-19 patients for nearly 2 years. Astonishingly, we have more COVID-19 disease patients today than we did at this time last year when vaccines were not available. We're tired, but we've never stopped working. Through exhaustion, through our own sorrow, we have never stopped working for you, our community, and our patients. You know, we need your help. We need to be able to get individuals vaccinated. We know that people with natural immunity are more than 5 times more likely to get COVID again than those with vaccine immunity, as demonstrated in the morbidity and mortality weekly report that was issued by the CDC in early November. It may seem like a difficult decision, but if you walked into one of our ICUs and saw the people gasping for breath, and not the time you spent with one of our nurses who breaks into tears because she's seen too much death, we need to get folks vaccinated. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Bruce Heyer. Bruce, are you on the line?
Call me. They didn't call me.
Bruce, are you on the line?
Hello?
We can hear you. You may proceed, Bruce.
Vaccine industry, in conjunction with Johns Hopkins and foreign interests, set on implementing their New World Order matrix. The SARS-CoV-2 has not been isolated. It cannot be tested for. The whole basis of the COVID pandemic is based on a fraud, the fraudulent presumption that PCR tests can test for a virus. It's completely false. The testing is a fraud. Therefore, any cases that were ever counted, including your current case counts that you guys all go by, are a fraud. A fraud vitiates everything. Fraud vitiates everything. That means it's null and void. You have a fraudulent test that the industry is using. You guys are being taken for a ride, and unfortunately, you're in a pickle because you accepted coronavirus relief funds of $293 million and used a large portion of those to fund your public safety budget because you guys determined that you could play along with a loophole whereby the payments for your services substantially dedicated to mitigating or responding to the COVID-19 public health emergency could be used and paid for by the COVID funds. Therefore, what's happened is you've received government money, and now you're stuck with having to play out their agenda. Now, it is a very sad situation to be in, this alleged worldwide pandemic that was pre-planned, premeditated, fabricated emergency in order to facilitate psychological, emotional, economic, and even biological harm to people. But there is one word that seems to bubble to the surface, and it's been used actually by a proponent of a vaccine mandate of all things, mentioning that extortion being done by the anti-vaxxers. Well, who's being extorted? I'll tell you who's being extorted. The people of Phoenix are being extorted.
Our next speaker is Marissa Hamilton. Marissa, are you on the line? Marissa, are you on the line? Marissa Hamilton, can you hear us? Our next speaker is Ben Luschner. Ben, are you on the line?
Can you hear me? Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. You may proceed.
Good afternoon. I am the president of PPSLA, the union that represents the police department sworn supervisors. PPSLA is opposed to the city mandating the COVID vaccine, whether by direct action or by passively deferring to an act by the federal government. And we are relieved that this mandate has been paused by the courts. Our staffing crisis in the police department is very real, and this mandate has the potential to directly and indirectly make this city unsafe. All of the metrics that we measure to determine safety in our city are ringing alarm bells. Crime rates are up, response times are down, staffing of officers per capita are significantly down. The residents of Phoenix are the ones who will get hurt if the Phoenix Police Department continues to shrink, and that is the priority public safety issue here. We urge the council to reject anything that would increase attrition in our shrinking police force. Our department is shrinking by almost 15 officers per month. That's 2 patrol squads gone every month. It does not take a math degree to figure out that this is not sustainable, and we are in crisis mode. Where just 10 years ago we had over 3,200 officers, today we have closer to 2,800. Now factor in that Phoenix's population has increased by almost 200,000 people in the same time period. So while we have gained the population of an entire small city, we have also lost over 400 officers. This explains why our response times have increased by over 27% in the last 10 years. This is an average, meaning some emergency calls take even longer to respond to because there simply are not any officers available for the call. This is not the time for vaccine mandates, and we urge the council to reject this idea so we can at least hold on to the officers that are here and recruit people who would otherwise not apply here due to a mandate. Please read the comments section, almost 700 of them, and overwhelmingly opposed to this mandate. This is a huge response and should not be taken lightly by the council. Thank you for your time.
Our next speaker is Justin M. Justin, are you on the line?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. You may proceed.
So it seems that you reached out to certain people to promote the vaccine and the mandate at this session today. I'm not really sure what to think of that. And you obviously wait for some of the speakers to be on the line, yet you instantly pass over others. I don't know. That just seems like what is going on. And it shouldn't go unnoticed that the mandate and the idea of this forced vaccination is totally opposed by the residents of the city. On the comments section, there's almost 700 comments. Almost every single one of them opposes the idea. And I'm disappointed that the council is even considering this mandate. This has a real effect on people's lives, not just the families of the employees who need them to keep their jobs, but I need them. I don't want to live in a city without police officers. And like the prior speaker indicated, there's going to be a huge shortage, and it's just not enough. Also, what about the people who had medical conditions, with a legitimate medical reason not to get it, but you scared them into getting it, and now they have to deal with heart problems the rest of their lives? I'm very concerned about how casually you would have gone about ruining the lives of the people in our community. We need local government to stand up to and protect us from the federal government. I see this very seriously. Shame on you for even considering the vaccine mandates. According to the judge's order, the court, and I believe everyone in a republic, you have to preserve the rule of law and ensure that all branches of government act within the bounds of their constitutional authority. This was obviously unconstitutional, and you were about to go along with it. That really shouldn't fly. That's all I've got. Thanks.
Our next speaker is Marta Macbin. Marta, are you on the line?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. You may proceed.
Okay, so I understand that a federal judge has blocked these types of proposed mandates, and that is very telling. This shouldn't have even been on today's agenda in the first place, like the previous speaker just said. No one should be forced to inject something into their body, no matter what. We need to uphold our freedom. Stop with the carrots and sticks. We are not a communist country. An executive order is not a law. You are elected officials and you need to represent the people. There's a large gathering of people outside your building right now who oppose the mandates, as well as the 700 comments on the page, like Justin mentioned. It is completely immoral and unconstitutional to force people to inject themselves or take any medication or do anything against his or her will in order to keep a job or ever. This is coercion and it is wrong. Remove this idea from any future agendas. And stop pumping the fear. We know this is not about health. I don't need to go into detail. It's already been mentioned. We know that the vaccines don't work to prevent the virus. If someone chooses to get a vaccine, so be it. That is their right. That is their choice, but it needs to be a choice. Open your eyes. Where does this lead? Look at Australia and Europe. Have you seen what is going on there? Is that how you want to live in the United States of America, a once great and free nation? Will we be telling our grandkids what freedom was? We must stand against tyranny because that is what these mandates are and why some common sense judges are blocking these unconstitutional moves. We need to preserve our freedom and our country's foundation. No mandates. God bless America. God bless our freedom. And let's go, Brandon. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Liana Magda. Liana, are you on the line?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can. You may proceed.
Hello?
We can
Hello?
hear
Can
you,
you guys hear me?
Liana. Yes, we
Okay.
can.
Hi. Yes, I have been involved in county level government work for 6 years now. I've worked for 2 different companies at a time. I'm speaking today opposing this mandate as it is it's a very unfortunate place to be in for other public servants such as myself. Many of us continue to show up every day to work throughout this pandemic, despite the risk that was proposed to us. We did so because we love our jobs. Now the fact that people who did this while other people stayed home are now going to be facing termination over a private medical decision is a real slap in the face. As a public servant, I love my job and I love what I do. And I could not imagine losing everything I worked hard for over a private medical decision that should be made between myself and my doctor. On top of this, I worked in 2 different jails throughout the pandemic. I've seen more people end up in a hospital or dead from that vaccine than I have from COVID itself. This is putting your employees in a very, very dangerous and very unconstitutional position. I hope that the city of Phoenix values their employees enough to let them keep their jobs without imposing this unconstitutional and illegal mandate on them. It is grave overreach and will cause loss of many public servants. As you mentioned earlier, before public comments came on, about half of your staff is currently fully vaccinated. Could you imagine running a city with half the staff you have now? That's not the community that people want to live in. I hope the city of Phoenix opposes this mandate and doesn't just pause it, but fully stops it from happening and saves public servants from termination of their jobs. Thank you for letting me speak.
Our next speaker is Marissa Hamilton. Marissa, are you on the line? Marissa, are you on the line? Marissa, we can see that you're unmuted, but we can't hear if you're speaking. Are you on the line?
I think so. Hello?
Yes, Marissa, we
I'm
can
here.
hear you.
Yes.
You may,
Can you hear me? Yes, I'm on the line.
you may proceed.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. You
Hi,
may
this
proceed.
is Marissa Hamilton. You can hear me? Am I on?
Yes, you are.
Okay, wonderful. Then I will speak now. My name is Marissa Hamilton. I'm a former employee at the City of Phoenix, and I find it deplorable of what you've been doing to our employees here. The reason why we came out, can you hear us? You can hear me? Okay.
Yes, we can.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. So my name is Marissa Hamilton. I'm a former City of Phoenix employee. It sounds like we're getting feedback. All right. Here's the thing. You need to end the mandate. It is not good enough to say you're putting it on a pause because this is impacting our employees, and you are giving them severe stress to the point that the reason why I got involved is that we are having to do welfare checks on other employees. When you create a work environment such as that, that is an abusive relationship between the employer and the employee. And that is not what our values are here at the City of Phoenix. So I would call for you to have the courage. Don't be cowards. Do a vote today. And please let this mandate rest. The City of Phoenix does not have to move forward with this. You can end the mandate now. End it gives families ease. And please look into the United Auto Workers plan, where they did a fantastic plan that respects all of their employees. Thank you so much.
Our next speaker is Barbara Nolan. Barbara, are you on the line?
It won't. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. You may proceed.
Okay, thank you so much. I just, my heart goes out to every speaker, every one of you there. I'm just sitting here listening and praying, and what a mess we are in. And I just extend compassion over everyone. And the only thing I can do with my knowledge of everything back and forth, both sides, is just to cry out and just say, Abba, Father, we seek your forgiveness over this corrupted world. We confess that we have rebelled against your perfect love and grace since the garden. We pray for full repentance now. And we ask, Father, for wholehearted return to your ways. May you look on all of this world with your undeserved favor for your own name's sake and deliver us from these wretched schemes of Satan. Humble your people, Father. You say when we humble and turn to you, you'll heal our land. You'll take this from us. So we pray, Father, that we thank you for allowing exactly what you know will bring your people to their knees in surrender and acceptance of your authority. No one else. That, Father, you gave us free will. You gave us free will to know you, to love you, to choose you above all things human, above all things created. And Father, we thank you for that gift of free will. We thank you that everyone listening, Father, has that gift instilled as your creations. And we pray that you have your will, Father. Your will be done, Yahweh. And we thank you. We just pray that you are honored. Father, help us, and come back soon. Amen. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Jeffrey Matthew. Jeffrey, are you on the line?
Yes.
You may proceed.
Yes, I am. I am calling to make a comment, a resident here, and I think everybody refers to we're not doing this, or we're closing down this, or we're vaccinating, or we're forcing vaccines, or we're forcing masks because of COVID. It's not because of COVID. It's because of government workers who want to change things. My son took his own life because his healthcare workers were afraid to visit their patients, and they didn't visit him for his monthly Invega shot. And he was left alone. He was lonely, and was neglected. And he had a mental illness. He was severely depressed and he had a 20% chance of suicide given his diagnosis. Yet his young psychiatrist mainly one who was 35 years old, was afraid to visit him for a 0.01% chance of catching a cold. And natural immunity, which I've had COVID, is powerful. Policymakers seem afraid to say so. People making decisions about their health deserve honesty from their leaders. It's okay to have an incorrect scientific hypothesis, but when new data proves it wrong, you have to adapt. Everybody says this is a disease of the unvaccinated. It's also a disease of people who haven't had COVID, and there's a lot of them. Unfortunately, many elected leaders and public health officials have held on too long to the hypothesis that natural immunity offers unreliable protection against COVID-19, and the contention is being rapidly debunked by science. More than 15 studies have demonstrated the power of immunity acquired by previously having the virus. A 700,000 person study from Israel found that those who had experienced prior infections were 27 times less likely to get a second symptomatic COVID infection than those who were vaccinated. That's all.
Our next speaker is Tom Priest. Tom, are you on the line?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hello?
You may proceed.
All right, thank you. I'm a Phoenix Fire 15 years, paramedic 10 years. I know your time is limited and mine's valuable, and your time's valuable too. Let me just explain. This is illogical and it's immoral. Let me tell you my experience as a Phoenix firefighter. 14 days to slow the spread first started. We still came to work. While the rest of the nation stayed at home and watched Netflix, we came to work and served the public as a family member. And a lot of us, including myself, got COVID during this time. I was personally sick for a day. I couldn't quarantine for my wife and kids, and they never got sick. I'm not a COVID denier. I get that it can be bad if you're elderly, have multiple comorbidities, but my own personal experience running 911 emergencies throughout this pandemic have been that I've seen very few people call 911 for COVID. And of those people, most had minor symptoms or none at all, including the elderly. Since this vaccine has been distributed, I have seen just as many strange medical problems in vaccinated patients, and I've had multiple people tell me that the vaccine did something strange to them. I even have a family member with a serious adverse reaction. I recently personally have seen about a 50-50 ratio of vaccinated and unvaccinated patients with COVID calling 911. Just a few shifts ago, I had a patient with both doses and the booster call us very sick with COVID. She stated that she was exposed from a family member that was also triple vaccinated and tested positive. It's clear to me that you can both get COVID and spread COVID while being vaccinated. If you look somewhere other than CNN, your censored Facebook and Twitter feeds, you will see that my experience is backed up by valid doctors and scientists. It boggles my mind that I have to stand before you today and beg you not to destroy this city. We cannot afford this as a society. Staffing is at all-time lows. This isn't fear-mongering, this is reality. We will lose city services across the board. I've already had to wait over 90 minutes at times for the police department to show up due to their staffing levels. We are running more calls and with less resources already, and that's making response times longer. Time is critical in my job. That means that the father or the mother that is walking out of the hospital a few days later is now 6 feet under. Time is tissue in our business, and fire grows exponentially. If this vaccine was truly life-saving and necessary, it wouldn't have to be mandated. Thank you for your time.
Our next speaker is Jill S. Jill, are you on the line?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. You may proceed.
Thank you. Forcing medical interventions on employees is beyond the scope of the Council on Government. And while in the guise of public safety, it is trending into authoritarianism and historically never ends in health for the public. And let's be honest, if this was a mandate coming from a different administration, there is no way this same mandate would be upheld by this same city council, nor should it be. This is all we need to know about the politicization of the mandate. The people that had the luxury of working at home or in isolated offices and kind of still appear to have the luxury of doing so are now the ones responsible for saying thanks for your service, but comply or lose your livelihood. This is not choice. This is authoritarian. It's wrong, and history will remember this as such. I really implore each member of the council to stop and consider what this looks like for you personally in the long term. You socially distanced, masked, stayed home. vaccinated, boosted. And now, as we see in Israel, one of the most vaccinated countries in the world, they're beginning to discuss a fourth booster. Please stop and consider where this goes. The day is shortly coming where you yourselves will be considered unvaccinated if you're not current with a fourth booster. Regardless of knowing the effects of 2 vaccines, 1 or more boosters, in potentially less than a year's time, we can look back at the overuse of antibiotics, opiates, and see the potential for overuse of vaccines. Where does this stop? What does government-mandated medical interventions look like to you under a Trump or DeSantis or whoever administration? Does that look and feel as safe to you personally? To pretend that the medical community has never gotten it wrong is wildly dangerous to us all. And as for Phoenix crime, 2020 homicides were up 52% and 175% increase in DV murders. 2021, 40% increase in homicides, 50% increase in aggravated assaults. You do not have the capacity to lose any more officers. Police and fire meet needs daily, tangible needs. See the need for our officers and fire now more than ever. Please do not enforce a mandate that is unlawful, immoral, and unsafe to our Phoenix citizens and employees. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Matt Salmon. Matt, are you on the line?
Yes, I am.
You may proceed.
My name is Matt Salmon, and I'm a former member of Congress and a near lifetime resident of Arizona. I'm here to express my gratitude for the federal judge that blocked President Biden's vaccine mandate this afternoon and stopped this council, for now, from imposing a mandate on city employees. The Tucson City Council imposed a mandate earlier this year, and we've already seen the consequences, including the Tucson Fire Department shutting down emergency response units due to staffing shortages. This vaccine mandate for Phoenix would have been a direct attack on our law enforcement officers, coming just weeks after plea told this council that the mandate is destroying morale and exacerbating recruitment problems. The men and women putting their lives on the line for this city deserve our admiration and respect, not to be the victims of big government power trip like this one that's being proposed. Our police officers and first responders can't afford this, and the city of Phoenix can't afford to lose them. I'm glad this mandate is in the garbage where it belongs, and I hope the council will never raise it again. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Anna Sanchez. Anna, are you on the line?
Yes, ma'am, I am. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I want to thank the council for stopping the COVID injection mandate on the city employees. This is a good move and in line with the latest court rulings. We Phoenicians will feel safer knowing that firefighters and police will be available to protect us these holidays, and that families will be able to provide their loved ones with whatever they need for the holidays. I will not call this a vaccine as it does not meet the CDC definition of a vaccine. So let's stop deceiving people, please. We now have 9 months of confirmed data since the COVID injections were released on the market. The media is not the only means of information. Many relatives who have lost loved ones speak and information spreads. I would like to encourage you, all the members in the City Council, to take a look at the official Bayer site data. This is the official data in the CDC site. If you really care for the safety of the City of Phoenix employees, Bayer's is reporting as of yesterday 15,937 deaths caused by the injection, 752,803 effects impacting livelihoods. These are people who cannot go back to their jobs because now they're paralyzed, in addition to birth defects. These are significant data considering that only 1% of the doctors take the time to navigate through the complex system of Bayers to report an event. This data cannot be ignored. To do so would be criminal. This is more death caused by one so-called vaccine in 1 year than all the rest of the vaccines since 1990 combined. This is significant. In the future, if you consider again making people choose between their life and their livelihood, I would ask that you submit a personal liability statement to cover court costs, damages, and loss of life and or livelihoods as a result of any COVID injection mandate. No federal funding can or would or should ever justify taking a life or hurting a human being. If faced with that decision again, I would urge you to choose life and reject the money. Thank you again for doing the right thing this time.
Our next speaker is Sandra Sherwood. Sandra, are you on the line?
Yes, I am. All right. Well, thank you so much for the opportunity to speak today. I just wanted to let you know I strongly oppose this imposition of mandatory vaccines on anyone, let alone some of our most vital resources in first line of defense, our police and fire department employees. There is no science to support the efficacies of these vaccines, and I use that term lightly considering the data that comes out with each passing day that shows an inordinate amount of adverse reactions, and the vast majority of new infections are found to be among those who have taken the vaccine. Case in point, it was recently reported that a cruise ship had an outbreak of COVID-19, yet every single passenger and crew member was fully vaccinated. Please choose the side of humanity, not tyranny. No elected government official has the right to impose an experimental medical injection on anyone. I have personally spoken to folks facing down this mandate, which, by the way, is not a law, but merely a strong suggestion, and the amount of stress and worry being caused is truly bordering on criminal. The science simply does not support this massive overreach into folks' personal health choices. We have a God-given right to self-determination granted to us by our Creator, enshrined in our constitutions, both state and federal. You swore an oath to uphold those said constitutions. We, the people, expect you to do that, regardless of what the current administration says. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak today. Have a good day.
Our final speaker is Andrea Smith. Andrea, are you on the line?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. You may proceed.
My name is Andrea Smith. I'm a wife and a mother. I'm an Arizona native and an Arizona State University graduate. My husband is a City of Phoenix employee who has faithfully served the community for almost 15 years now and has been honored to do so. According to the CDC's own data, 95% of COVID deaths have an average of 4 comorbidities, majority being lifestyle and nutrition related. 78% of hospitalizations were in overweight or obese people. Again, according to the CDC, the 2 largest risk factors for death are obesity and fear/anxiety related disorders. Given this information, why have government health officials kept us in perpetual fear over the last 2 years? Why haven't government health officials and public health experts mentioned anything about lifestyle, nutrition, and mindfulness? This is not a time-sensitive health emergency that has gone on for 2 years now. Lack of funding? No. The federal government has spent $10 billion to increase vaccine confidence and improve vaccine infrastructure. If this was truly about health, why isn't any money being spent on things that actually keep us healthy? Why would the City of Phoenix even consider mandating an experimental product with no long-term safety data made by habitually criminal companies who aren't liable for injury or death when the product doesn't even stop transmission of disease or confer immunity to disease? In fact, a recent peer-reviewed study that looked at 68 countries found that, I quote, there is no discernible relationship between percentage of population fully vaccinated with a higher percentage of those fully vaccinated had a higher percentage rate of COVID-19 cases per 1 billion people. Pfizer has paid the largest criminal fine in U.S. history with $2.3 billion for mispromoting medicine and paying kickbacks to compliant doctors. Pfizer has a history of lying, misappropriating medicine, bribing doctors, and has withheld information and used African children as guinea pigs. Given the small fraction of information, how is this even on the table? Thank you.
Thank you. Now we will turn to council member questions and comments.
Mayor?
Councilman DeCiccio.
Thank you, Mayor. So, for those that don't think that COVID is a real deal, it is. It's a real deal. People are dying from it. I've had 2 friends of mine pass from it. And so I would hope that people would not discredit this because every human body is different. Everyone reacts to things differently. I went and met with my doctor early on, way early on, when COVID started coming out, met with him, developed a plan. Part of the plan was to do hydroxychloroquine I ended up getting COVID. He told me that on the 4th day, he said, Sal, you will test negative on the 4th day if you stay on this regimen. I did that. 4th day, I went and got tested, negative. 5th day, I tested again, just to test again, negative. So I followed that. I only had one bad day, but that's me. That's not everybody. That was my personal choice to make at the time, to consult with my doctor. It was a decision that my doctor and I made, and that's what I followed. I didn't follow what politicians, I didn't follow what anyone else said in the media. Definitely no one in the media. I don't know how many doctors pretend or pseudo doctors there were out there. I followed the advice of my doctor. Likewise, I think the decision today is for individuals to make their own choice on this. But before I get into that, I just have some questions of staff, and probably our own city attorney first. Is there anything preventing, this council from mandating this on their own, outside of the federal contractor part of it? Is there anything stopping anybody on this council from making a motion or doing anything like that, either today or in the future, to mandate the vaccine? Not the federal contractor side, not the part dealing with the president. We'll deal with that in a second.
Mayor, Councilman DeCiccio, that is without a specific motion, that's a difficult question to answer and to give it legal advice in a public meeting. There are some aspects that the council could declare a mandate on its own, but there's some things that argue against that. And in the case of arguing against, you mentioned not counting the mandate that's been given as far as federal contractors. Right. There are others as well, other orders or federal regulations that require various parts of the employees to have vaccination mandates. So, sorry, that doesn't directly, but that's, I think that.
Right.
Okay.
What I'm saying is that the city could impose this mandate on their own without having to wait for the president, correct?
Again, Councilman, there's some things that argue against that. That's possible. There's the executive order that was passed that we've had those debates, those discussions about. So I can't say definitively they could or they couldn't, to be honest, okay?
So, I appreciate that, Chris. What I'm trying to give people at least a perspective that this thing may not just go away just because it's going to be put on hold today. It's not going to go away. I believe that the city could do this on their own, but not outside, completely outside of the executive order or anything else. If the city felt strongly about it, they could do that. So this is a warning to those that are out there listening that this is not going to just go away. So just because of, I think what's going to happen today, this thing's just going to die out as it should, but I don't think it's going to go away because I think people will find a way to get around that. Then I've got a question to Eric, the attorney. So Eric, your view is that we have to comply with this federal contractor part, correct?
Councilman, yes, that's correct.
Okay. Why has every other city come up with an alternate ruling other than us? Every city that we've talked to, or at least I've talked to, says we're definitely not, we don't believe that we're part of that. And they've all got great, smart attorneys as well. We're the only ones. We're the outlier here. Why is that?
Councilman, I have not analyzed the federal contracts that other cities may have.
Okay. Do you have a written opinion on this?
We sent a memorandum
I assume we paid you to do that.
Councilman, yes, we sent a memorandum to Chris.
Councilman DeCiccio, we sent that out. We sent that message, that memo out from Eric earlier this week, yesterday.
Okay. And so in that memo that we had out, so that was the direct opinion from Eric then, the memorandum?
That is correct.
Okay. So from that end of it, I mean, we are the outlier in the entire state of Arizona that says we have to follow this. I mean, we're going to have multiple attorneys. I mean, you've got attorneys throughout the entire state of Arizona that are saying, no, we've got one attorney on our end of it that says we have to do this. The federal contract thing, don't buy it, never did. I believe we're not part of that, and so does the majority of the state of Arizona. This comes down to an individual choice. What happened today, the city of Phoenix averted a crisis, a real crisis. We would have seen police officers and firefighters leave in droves, and we're already losing them. We have the real crisis facing the city of Phoenix is something that we actually can control, and that is, what are we going to do to hire more? I know we're discussing this tomorrow, but it's all about talk. There's no action plan, coming out of the Public Safety Committee of how to hire more, and with metrics and way to be able to determine whether or not we have enough police officers or not. We are at crisis levels in the city of Phoenix, crisis levels, and we are not going to get better. We're at crisis levels with our fire department. Public safety is at risk. Anyone who supports these mandates, anything that is happening right now to drive these police officers and these firefighters out, I think puts the city of Phoenix at a complete risk and puts us in the same boat as San Francisco, Minneapolis, Portland, and other places like that. We do not want to be like them. We do not want to be like them. They have nothing but one crisis after another, and we could be facing those same problems here in the state of Arizona. I hope this thing just goes away, as it should, and declare victory for those individuals that support this thing going away, and move forward as a city and focus on the real problem, which is crime in our city, crime in our state. We are number one when it comes to crime. We're number one. That's nothing to be proud of. We should be looking at this as our first and highest and best level of priority that we have. This is the thing that matters. Thank you, Mayor.
Mayor, if I may, Councilman DeCiccio, just to respond to one of the things you mentioned, that we are the only city that has been recognizing this and recognizing ourselves as a federal contractor. Attorney General Brnovich, in his complaint, he identified several entities that fall under state jurisdiction that have been classified as federal contractors. And I'll just give you a couple examples of those that he cites specifically in his complaint. ASU, U of A, and NAU, he cites explicitly stating that those are federal contractors. ASRS leases space to the EEOC. They have actually received an amendment from the GSA illustrating and indicating that they also are a federal contractor. The Attorney General's Office, the Civil Rights Division, received an amendment from the EEOC as well. ADOT leases property to the GSA. ADHS was contacted by a CDC to amend a contract under the same provision that they also are a federal contractor, as well as DPS and Department of Corrections, who hold contracts with National Park Service and the U.S. Forest Service. So just again to illustrate that we are not the only ones that have arrived at the conclusion that we are a federal contractor and subject to this. I think what some entities have done, either A, they have not yet received federal contracts that are requiring amendment, or they've decided just not to implement and to comply with said amendments. And I'd ask Eric to clarify if I'm accurate with what I just said.
So we would be the only ones out of that list. I don't think ASU's following through on that, are they? I mean, they would be the other one, the other alternative that would probably fall. The other ones, I don't see them doing it at all.
Councilman DeCiccio, I think it also depends upon what the contractual arrangement is. In some instances, there is no service provided by the federal government. It's in fact, for example, some of those entities are leasing space to federal government. So if they decide to walk away from said contract, there's no harm to services. It's the areas in which where there are services that the federal government is either providing through a mandate or providing as a requirement of some sort of federal provision that where I think the question comes in terms of what the impact is on service.
And so the list you provided, Jeff, which ones do follow? Wait, hold on, just really quick. Of the list that you provided, Jeff, which ones fall in the same category as us?
Well, Councilman DeCiccio, without knowing what contracts that those entities have, I can't specifically say which ones are exactly like us. I'd have to analyze all of their individual contracts.
Why would we even use them as examples then?
I use them as examples I use them as examples, Councilman, just to illustrate that we're not the only one that has determined that we qualify as a federal contractor. I cited those simply because in the complaint that is filed by Attorney General Brnovich, that he calls out those entities as federal contractors that would theoretically be subject to said executive order. That's the only reason I called them out.
Okay, fine. I don't want to get into the debate with you, Jeff. I think you're a good guy, and you're trying to do the right thing here, but we'll just disagree on some of this. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman. Additional council comments? Councilwoman Ansari.
Thank you, Mayor. Before I get to my comments, I just want to clarify on the issue that was just being discussed. ASU, U of A, and NAU did mandate COVID-19 vaccinations for all employees back in October after the federal mandate, just for those who may not have seen that. I just want to say on this issue, while the mandate is on pause until further notice, I still strongly hope that City of Phoenix employees will follow the latest science to protect not only themselves, but the public from COVID-19. I'm encouraged that we had so many leaders today from the healthcare sector, from Banner Health, from Dignity, from Valleywise, call in to emphasize yet again that we are in a crisis, and it's been 2 years of a crisis, and right now we are still in it, very much still in it, and with the new variant, seeing COVID cases on the rise. Just last week, the statistics are showing that Arizona was down to just 108 ICU beds in the entire state. 50% of the beds occupied in Phoenix are from COVID-19 patients, and we're seeing benchmark data that we have high transmission rates in Phoenix. There's unfortunately so much misinformation and fear-mongering around vaccines, but research shows that vaccines are protecting people from being in intensive care or worse, losing their lives. They are working, and I believe that we as elected leaders should be doing everything that we can to make sure that we are saving lives. The city has very tragically, we saw the statistics that Lori and Jeff shared, we've lost 24 employees to COVID-19, and we've seen that our public safety workers are the ones who are most vulnerable because they are the ones interacting with the public most frequently. We have, thankfully, even from long before I got here during COVID, implemented many safety protocols, and I'm grateful to the service of our employees, but we also have to make sure that the public is safe. And for me, it's very concerning that we are potentially exposing vulnerable members of the public who do not have a choice, whether a vaccinated or an unvaccinated city employee comes to their assistance. And I think that the public should also have that right to have to be safe when they are in need and requiring assistance from the city. We know that increased vaccination rates mean lower rates of infection, which translates to not only less illness, but less absence from the workplace. And as we're talking about staffing and efficiency and providing for the public, I think that we need to make sure that our services are not interrupted. And again, we saw data that shows that we have had interruptions when our employees have been have contracted COVID-19. So as we go into the holiday season, I just hope that we will all remember that vaccines are still our best prevention effort. I'm looking forward to next week's conversation where we talk about incentives of up to $1,500, which will be critically important in this fight, and just hope that that will help us as we do everything we can to make sure that our city staff remain safe and the public remains safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Ansari. Councilwoman Stark.
Thank you, Mayor. I have just a quick question of staff. Just as an example, I know we're now in a stay because of the federal judge, but what would happen, let's say, at the airport if we didn't have the mandate? What could occur, like with the TSA being there? Are there stiff penalties we might see if we don't follow through?
Councilwoman Stark, I'll try and answer this question, and I'll defer to Chris if I need to add anything additional. We don't really know what the penalties are. I mean, the federal government has basically said that they have the option of not continuing the contract and also imposing some sort of penalties. What those penalties are, we don't know. The guidance doesn't specifically call those out. So again, there are abundance of federal contracts at the airport, not just with the TSA, but we've got the Air National Guard, and we've got other federal contracts at the airport that would be subject to this. But again, as we all know now, we've got an injunction. So those items are not necessarily up for debate right now.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate that. I am glad I'm vaccinated. As soon as I qualified, I was in line, and I know it's keeping me healthy and keeping me safe. I've not contracted COVID, but if I did, I think having the vaccine will help me. So I hope our employees think about the safety of themselves and of their fellow workers. I too agree with Councilwoman Ansari that I think hopefully with the 1,500 as an incentive that we can get more people vaccinated. And I really do feel strongly that we all need to help each other out, and a vaccine is the way to do that. So thank you, Mayor.
Mayor, may I say something?
Thank you. Yes, we'll go to Councilman Waring and then Councilwoman O'Brien.
Thank you. So thanks, Mayor. So a question for Jeff and Lori. Just ballparking, we've got 14,000 employees. Is it true that roughly half of them are not vaccinated?
Yes, Councilman Waring, we have currently 51% of our employees that have submitted completed vaccine cards indicating that they are fully vaccinated, and 49% of our employees that have not. That doesn't mean that the 49% have not been vaccinated, it just means that they have not submitted a card.
Okay, so there's a couple things going on there, and I'm going to take a different tack than maybe some others have. You know, the virus isn't new, as has already been suggested by other members. The vaccine isn't new, but half of our employees either don't want to get vaccinated, haven't gotten vaccinated, or don't want to tell people that they're vaccinated. So they obviously feel strongly about at least one of those two things, or maybe both. They want their privacy for their healthcare decision, or they just don't want to get vaccinated and they want to make the decision on their own, and they've made it. We can spend some money to try to get some of them to change their mind. But my ultimate point is it's not going to get to be 100%. People have held up New York City, which went ahead and I think instituted a mandate on its own prior to the federal action. They're not in compliance. I think they're at 80%. So they're not in compliance. So the question of what are the feds going to do to us when we're not in compliance, we might as well find out now, because we're not all going to be vaccinated January 18th, not all 14,000 employees, when 7,000 of them are not vaccinated now. It's not realistic. It's not going to happen. It's also not going to happen by next January 18th. Obviously, people feel strongly about this. Sal mentioned the Public Safety Committee. He's absolutely right. And we've beaten it to death, like why are officers leaving and so forth. They are. It almost doesn't matter. They're deciding to leave. But there are a bunch that are still retirement eligible that are probably like, you know, it's not the job that I used to love, or maybe I'm not ready to retire, or I'm too young to retire, whatever decision-making goes into that. I think that's still about 20% of the force. We can't replace the ones who have already retired, much less the next batch that are probably at the tipping point. And you don't want to add to that under the fear of penalties that we're going to incur anyway, because we're not going to get to 100%. That's just, I just don't see how that's realistic in any way, shape, or form. So if the federal government is saying they're going to close the airport, I'd like to see them do it. Let's see them do it like the day, the biggest day that Amazon is delivering packages for Christmas. Let's have them do it the day before Christmas or the day before next Thanksgiving. I don't really think that's going to happen. That's a different discussion than whether people should get vaccinated or not. Clearly, a lot of people have made their decision. And so if healthcare providers and the government want to make a change there, they need to obviously do a better job of messaging, I guess is the only way to phrase it, because they failed pretty miserably when it comes to city employees. You know, these are adult people who are making decisions. They're obviously basing on information that's out there, whether every individual on the council agrees with their decision-making or not. Fact is, it's happening. And it's already happened, you know, because they've had lots of time to get vaccinated if that's what they want to do, and they've decided that they don't. These police officers and our other employees are extremely valuable. They're almost, it appears, at least in the police officer's case, almost impossible to replace. So we have a pretty serious problem going forward. Sal's right. We dodged a bullet with this court case today, but this isn't over yet either. I don't understand. I understand the questioning prior about, I don't understand why other cities aren't acting this way. So Mesa says they don't have contracts that are affected. I mean, they've got an airport. They've got the same stuff we have. How could the contracts be so different? So I would implore our legal team. I'm not questioning your work. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not the person to be judging your homework. I guess these judges are, literally. But, it might behoove us to go compare notes and compare the contracts line by line with these other cities and not incentivize people that we are finding it impossible to replace to quit before they might otherwise have done so. We need those police officers. We don't need to beat it to death, but that should be obvious. That has public safety ramifications too. You get us down to 2,000 officers, this place may not be livable. And I live here too, so I'm watching this as well for my family and my personal safety. So that also impacts potentially my health and the health of my neighbors and so forth. So this is not it shouldn't be a zero-sum game. We're making it such. I think this was the right decision today. But let's not just kick the can down the road. Let's go get some answers on some of this stuff. And in terms of the federal government just willy-nilly throwing out, well, we might do this, we might do that. Yeah, well, okay. I don't believe that's really going to happen. But I think we're going to ultimately put it to the test. So we might as well find out now. I think that's been extremely poorly handled by the federal government. And it sounds like at least one judge agrees. So thank you for the time, Mayor. I appreciate it.
Councilman Waring.
Thank you, Councilwoman O'Brien.
Councilman Waring, if I may, really quickly, Mayor, I'm sorry. One thing I will say that is different between us and the other cities is the time in which those contracts expire and when those amendments are being sent out. So it's just highly possible that some of them have not yet received their amendments. We're starting to get ours trickling in prior to their expiration date. So my guess is that prior to this injunction hitting, they would have also started seeing those contract amendments come through as their contracts were due for expiration.
Mayor, one thing.
Thank you, Jeff. Mayor, if I could just. Oh.
Sorry, Councilman.
I think that was Eric, and then we'll go back to Councilman Waring.
It was.
Or who was the second?
It was Chris, Mayor.
Chris, thank you.
Just one other thing to add to what Jeff said. In the case of Mesa, for example, and Councilman Waring, we understand your point. We are reaching out. We have been talking about those. A lot of them, as Jeff Barton said, have not received contracts yet or are still looking at how they're going to handle this because they have not faced the issue yet. But the Mesa Airport in particular is not owned by the city of Mesa, so it affects them differently. There's an airport authority that owns and operates the Mesa Airport, I believe. So the requirements from the TSA to the airport authority would not affect Mesa the same way.
Councilman
Chris, Jeff, thank you for that answer, and I appreciate it, Mayor. Just one response. So I understand your point. We may have gotten, and Lori Bays and I had talked about that with some of the groups who I think some members and in fact some individuals that whose names I recognize. We met with them, I guess it was a week ago Monday, to discuss some of these issues. I know that the guidance has come in. We assumed it was blanket to everybody at the same time in the same format. Apparently that may not be true. Your point about contracts expiring and stuff is well taken. And I understand that, Mesa may not have reached the point in their contracts where they're dealing with the same issues we are. Chris, you raised the point about, who owns the airport and who are those employees? Are they contract employees and so forth? But ultimately, I find it hard to believe, and Chris, I have the ultimate respect for your work as well, but, I do think it's unlikely that basically all the other cities don't have at least some crossovers and similar